In the frozen mountains of Montana, one female sniper faced an impossible choice that would shatter every record and challenge everything we know about war and mercy. When Delta Force sniper Jennifer Crawn was ordered to shoot through an innocent woman's shoulder to save 6 CIA operatives, she knew this was just the beginning. The kidnapper wasn't just any mercenary. He was Alexander Cross, her grandfather's finest student turned monster, the man who murdered her parents 15 years ago. But nothing could prepare her for what came next. Cross had taken something more precious than revenge could ever satisfy. Her 5-year-old daughter Emma, hidden from the world to keep her safe. Now Jennifer must lead a team into the deadliest trap ever created, where she'll make 3 impossible shots at 3,712 meters, over 2 miles through a blizzard. What happens when the perfect kill isn't the right choice? When mercy becomes the ultimate weapon? This is the true story that redefined what it means to be not just a warrior, but a human being holding a rifle. If this story moves you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible military stories that showcase the strength of the human spirit. Your support helps us share these powerful tales of courage, sacrifice, and the choices that define us. Shoot through me. Female sniper's impossible choice that shattered every record. The crosshairs trembled for exactly 1 heartbeat. Through the Night Force scope, Jennifer Crawn could see the kidnapper's finger tightening on the trigger pressed against the CIA operative's temple. 6 American intelligence officers knelt in the Montana snowhands, zip-tied behind their backs, surrounded by 14 armed mercenaries in a remote cabin compound. The extraction team was still 40 minutes out. The negotiator's voice crackled through her earpiece, speaking the words she'd trained her whole life never to hear. Take the shot through the hostage. Jennifer's breathing stopped. 28 years old, 5'6", auburn hair, tucked beneath a white ghillie hood, she lay prone on a ridge 800 meters away. The mathematics were brutal in their simplicity. The kidnapper had positioned himself perfectly, using Agent Patricia Coleman as a human shield, only 6 inches of his head visible. To save 6 lives, she'd have to shoot through Coleman's shoulder, shattering her clavicle, possibly destroying her subclavian artery, definitely ending her career, maybe ending her life. Wind speed 12 miles per hour from the northwest. Temperature -14 Celsius. Altitude adjustment for 8,000 feet. The Barrett M82A1 50 caliber rifle beneath her could punch through an engine block. Through a human shoulder, it would create a wound channel the size of a softball. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory gravelly from 60 years of Texas summers and military winters. The hardest shot isn't the longest one, Jennifer. It's the one that keeps you awake at night. She'd been 8 years old when Colonel Robert Crawn first put a rifle in her hands. Not a .22 like most kids learned on, but his old Remington 700 from Korea, the one with 43 confirmed kills carved into its stock before he'd stopped counting. He'd made her hold it for 10 minutes without moving, her tiny arms shaking from the weight, tears streaming down her face. When she'd finally dropped it, he'd picked her up, held her close, and whispered the words that would define her life. Strength isn't about the weight you can carry, little warrior. It's about carrying it when everything inside you screams to let go. The kidnapper was shouting now, demanding a helicopter, threatening to execute 1 hostage every 5 minutes. Patricia Coleman was crying, her body shaking, making the shot even more impossible. Jennifer's spotter, Sergeant James Murphy, whispered wind corrections that she already knew. She'd calculated everything down to the Coriolis effect, that tiny drift caused by the Earth's rotation. At this range, it would push the bullet 4 inches to the right. She thought about her grandfather's funeral 6 months ago. The honor guard folding the flag, the 21-gun salute, the box of his personal effects that included a letter addressed to her sealed with wax like something from another century. Inside, a single paragraph that had shattered her world. Jennifer, there are things about your gift I could never tell you while I lived. Things about Project Silent Arrow, about the men I trained who became monsters, about why your parents really died. If you're reading this, it means Alexander Cross has probably already found you. He was my best student until he became something else. The rifle I left you isn't just an inheritance. It's a responsibility, and perhaps a curse. Some shots echo across generations. Make yours count. The kidnapper shifted slightly, improving Jennifer's angle by 2 degrees. Through her scope, she could see Patricia Coleman's lips moving in prayer. The other hostages were statues, still knowing that any movement might trigger a massacre. Murphy's breathing beside her was mechanical discipline. He'd been her spotter for 2 years through 37 operations, but he'd never seen her take a shot like this. Crawn, you've got 60 seconds before he executes. The negotiator's voice was flat professional, already writing Coleman off as acceptable losses. Can you make the shot or not? Jennifer's finger found the trigger. 3.5 pounds of pressure stood between salvation and damnation. She thought about the qualification course at Fort Benning 3 weeks ago, when she'd shattered the all-service record with a confirmed hit at 2,600 meters. Colonel Harrison had stood there slack-jawed as the steel target rang out across the Georgia humidity. The previous record had stood for 15 years. She'd broken it by 300 meters. But that had been steel. This was flesh and blood and consequence. The kidnapper pressed his pistol harder against Coleman's temple. Jennifer could see his finger whitening on the trigger. In that moment, time crystallized into something diamond-sharp and infinite. She saw her grandfather in Korea laying in frozen mud for 72 hours to take one shot that would save his entire company. She saw her parents' plane exploding over Colorado when she was 13, the official report calling it mechanical failure. Her grandfather's tears the only time she'd ever seen him cry. She saw herself at 18 choosing Delta Force over a full scholarship to MIT, her grandfather's proud smile when she'd graduated sniper school first in her class. Wind gusted to 15 miles per hour. She micro-adjusted without thinking. The kidnapper started counting down from 10. Jennifer exhaled half a breath and held it. Her heart rate dropped to 42 beats per minute. The world narrowed to the mechanical precision of ballistics. Bullet weight 750 grains. Muzzle velocity 2,800 feet per second. Time to target 1.03 seconds. Through Coleman's left shoulder 20 degrees down angle, avoiding the subclavian artery by approximately 1 inch into the kidnapper's brainstem. She squeezed. The Barrett roared like thunder, thunder incarnate. The recoil hammered into her shoulder, but she rode it, keeping her scope on target. 1.03 seconds of flight time. The 50 caliber bullet carved through mountain air, spinning at 200,000 revolutions per minute. Through her scope, she watched Patricia Coleman's shoulder explode backward, heard her scream. Even at this distance, saw the kidnapper's head simply cease to exist in a pink mist that painted the snow behind him. The other mercenaries had exactly 2 seconds of shock before Jennifer's second shot took their leader's center, mass folding him backward like a broken doll. Murphy was already calling wind corrections for the next target, but the remaining hostiles were scattering, diving for cover, shooting wildly at ghosts on the ridgeline. The extraction team's helicopters appeared over the eastern peaks, Apache gunships lighting up the compound with 30-millimeter cannons. Target down, Coleman alive. Multiple hostiles neutralized. Murphy's voice was steady, but Jennifer could hear something else beneath it. Respect, definitely. Fear, possibly. You just made a shot that shouldn't exist, Crawn. She was already breaking down the Barrett movement's automatic while her mind processed what she'd just done. Patricia Coleman would live, though she'd never hold a weapon again. The kidnapper was a memory. 6 CIA operatives were going home to their families. And somewhere in the shadows of this operation, she knew Alexander Cross was watching. Her grandfather's star student. The man who'd taken his teachings and twisted them into something monstrous. The man who'd claimed responsibility for 19 confirmed kills of American service members over the past 5 years. They extracted under covering fire the Black Hawk's rotors, beating the thin mountain air into submission. Jennifer sat in the jump seat, her rifle case between her knees, watching the Montana Rockies fall away beneath them. Murphy handed her a thermos of coffee that tasted like liquid cardboard and salvation. His hands were shaking slightly. Hers were perfectly still. That shot's going into the history books. 800 meters through a hostage. Nobody's ever going to believe it without the video evidence? Jennifer thought about her grandfather's letter about Project Silent Arrow, about secrets that had died with him, or maybe hadn't. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to the encrypted folder she'd discovered in his effects. 64 gigabytes of classified documents from 1953 that shouldn't exist. Training records, psychological profiles, and 13 names, 12 crossed out in red. Only one remaining. Alexander Cross. She'd searched for him, once found nothing. The man was a ghost in the digital age, a whisper in intelligence circles, a nightmare for anyone who'd crossed him. But her grandfather had trained him, shaped him, created him. And according to the files, Cross had been there the day her parents died. Not a coincidence. Not mechanical failure. Murder. The Black Hawk touched down at Fort Carson as the sun was setting behind the mountains, painting them blood red. Colonel Harrison was waiting on the tarmac, his face unreadable behind aviator sunglasses. Beside him stood someone Jennifer didn't recognize. A woman in her 50s, civilian clothes but carrying herself with military bearing, eyes like winter ice. Crawn. Harrison's voice was carefully neutral. Outstanding work today. Coleman's stable she'll make it. The DNI wants to personally thank you, but first someone wants to talk to you about your grandfather. The woman stepped forward, extended a hand. Her grip was firm, calloused from decades of trigger time. Margaret Hayes, formerly CIA Special Activities Division. I worked with Robert Crawn in 1962 on something we called Project Silent Arrow. I think it's time you knew the truth about your inheritance. They drove to a secure facility 40 minutes from base through 3 checkpoints and 2 biometric scanners. The briefing room was underground walls lined with copper mesh to prevent electronic surveillance. Director Hayes spread files across the table, photographs from another era. Jennifer recognized her grandfather immediately, young and lethal in jungle fatigues. Beside him stood 12 other men, faces hard as carved stone. Project Silent Arrow was ahead of its time, Hayes began. The idea was to create a new generation of snipers who could make impossible shots beyond anything our enemies could conceive. Your grandfather wrote the book literally. His manual became the foundation for every American sniper school. But we made a mistake. We didn't just train Americans. She slid another photograph across. Jennifer's blood chilled. Her grandfather stood with his arm around a young man's shoulders, both smiling. The young man's eyes were distinctive, predatory, even in celebration. Alexander Cross, age 23, 1987. Exchange program with British SAS. Your grandfather saw potential in him that nobody else did. Trained him personally for 18 months. Cross absorbed everything, exceeded every expectation. Made his first 2,000-meter shot before anyone else thought it was possible. Then what happened? Hayes' face darkened. Desert Storm 991. Cross was attached to a joint task force, started taking shots that weren't authorized. Executing surrendering enemies. We tried to stop him quietly, but he disappeared into the private sector. Started selling his skills to the highest bidder. Your grandfather spent the last 20 years of his life trying to track him down, feeling responsible for what Cross had become. Jennifer studied the photographs, seeing her grandfather's guilt captured in Kodachrome. Why didn't he ever tell me about this? Because Cross made it personal. Hayes pulled out another file stamped with classification levels Jennifer didn't recognize. 2008, your 13th birthday. Your parents were flying to pick you up from camp when their plane exploded. Official reports said mechanical failure, but your grandfather knew better. Cross's signature was all over it. A message to Robert. Stop hunting me or I'll take everything you love. The room felt suddenly airless. Jennifer's hands, steady through 1,000 shots, began to tremble. My parents were murdered because of my grandfather's student. Your grandfather stopped hunting Cross after that, focused everything on training you instead. He knew Cross would eventually come for you, wanted you prepared. That rifle he left you, the Remington 700, it's been modified with specifications and Cross doesn't know about. Barrel harmonics, trigger weight, scope alignment, all specifically calibrated for shots beyond 3,000 meters. He called it the Silent Eagle. As if summoned by his name, Jennifer's secure phone buzzed. Unknown number. She looked at Hayes, who nodded. Speaker mode. The voice that filled the room was cultured British accent, crisp and cold as Arctic wind. Hello, Jennifer. Exceptional shot today. 800 meters through a hostage requires not just skill, but will. Robert would be proud, though I wonder if he mentioned that Patricia Coleman was my spotter in Syria 6 years ago. She left me to die when the payment didn't clear. Today, you gave me something I've wanted for a very long time. Her suffering. Jennifer's mind raced, pieces clicking together. You set this up. The kidnapping, the hostages, everything. Cross's laugh was soft, almost paternal. I've been setting things up since before you were born, little one. Your grandfather took something from me in Korea, a philosophy, a way of being. He taught me to be death itself, then tried to cage that death when it didn't align with his morals. But you're different. That shot today proved it. You're willing to hurt the innocent to save the many. You're already more like me than him. What do you want, Cross? There was a pause, the sound of wind over the phone suggesting he was somewhere high, somewhere cold. I have something of yours, Jennifer. Something you've kept hidden even from your precious Delta Force. Little Emma is quite charming. 5 years old, your eyes, your grandfather's stubborn chin. Did you really think hiding her with your aunt in Denver would keep her safe from me? The world tilted. Jennifer grabbed the table's edge, her vision tunneling. Emma, her daughter, the child she'd had at 23 with a fellow operator who died in Afghanistan before he even knew she existed. The secret she'd protected above all others. If you hurt her, Jennifer, I'm not a monster. Well, not to children anyway. Emma is perfectly safe playing with toys I bought her, eating ice cream, watching cartoons. She thinks I'm a friend of her mother's, here to take her on an adventure. She even calls me Uncle Alex. Touching. Really. Hayes was already on another phone barking orders, trying to trace the call, mobilize assets in Denver. But Jennifer knew it was pointless. Cross was too smart, too careful. Here's what's going to happen. Cross continued, his tone shifting to business. You're going to come to me, alone. No team, no backup, no surveillance. Just you and whatever rifle you choose to bring. I'm in a place your grandfather knew well, a place where he made his greatest shot and his greatest mistake. You have 72 hours. If you're late, if you bring friends, if you try anything clever, Emma learns what it's like to be truly alone in this world. Where? The place where Silent Era was born. The place where your grandfather created me. Devil's Crown, Montana. 12,000 feet up, where the air is thin and the shots are impossible. There's a ranger station at the base of the mountain. Be there in 72 hours. Come alone or don't come at all. The line went dead. Jennifer stood frozen, her mind calculating distances, logistics, probabilities. Devil's Crown was a legendary training ground, a mountain peak surrounded by 2 miles of open terrain in every direction. No cover, no approach that wasn't exposed. It was a sniper's perfect defensive position. Colonel Harrison cleared his throat. Crawn, we can't let you go alone. This is clearly a trap. Jennifer turned to him, and something in her eyes made him step back. He has my daughter, Colonel, my 5-year-old daughter that I've kept hidden to protect from exactly this scenario. I'm going. Then you're going prepared, Hayes interjected. She pulled up satellite imagery on the wall screen. Devil's Crown, also known as Viper's Nest in certain circles. Your grandfather trained 12 men there in 1962. Only 3 survived the full course. Cross knows every inch of that terrain, has probably been preparing it for years. Jennifer studied the images, her mind already working through angles, distances, wind patterns at altitude. The longest possible shot from outside his kill zone would be approximately 700 meters. That's assuming perfect conditions, which we won't have. Weather forecast. Murphy, who'd been silent until now, pulled up meteorological data. Storm system moving in from Canada. In 72 hours, you're looking at 40-mile-per-hour winds, heavy snowfall, visibility near zero. It'll be like shooting through a white wall. Then I'll need the Silent Eagle. Jennifer moved to the equipment locker, pulled out her grandfather's rifle case. And I'll need a team, whether Cross knows about them or not. Harrison shook his head. He said alone. He'll kill the girl if... He'll kill her anyway if I don't have an edge. Cross doesn't want a fair fight. He wants to prove he's superior to my grandfather's legacy. To do that, he needs to beat me at my absolute best. That means he expects me to cheat just like he will. She turned to Murphy. You're my spotter, non-negotiable. We've worked together too long to adjust to anyone else now. Then to Hayes. I need 3 more operators. The best you have. Mountain warfare specialists who can move in Arctic conditions and shoot in zero visibility. People who understand that this isn't just about saving my daughter. It's about ending what my grandfather started. Hayes nodded slowly. I know just the people. Master Sergeant David Cooper, Delta Force, specialized in high-altitude operations. Chief Petty Officer Maria Anderson, SEAL Team 6 Arctic warfare expert. Staff Sergeant Marcus Jackson, Marine Force Recon, best mountain tracker in the service. Jennifer checked her watch. 69 hours remaining. Every second Emma spent with Cross was another moment of danger, another chance for something to go wrong. But rushing would mean death for both of them. She needed to be smart, needed to be perfect, needed to be everything her grandfather had trained her to be, and more did all. The team assembled at 0400 hours in a hangar that didn't exist on any Fort Carson inventory. Jennifer stood before a wall of reconnaissance photos, each one showing Devil's Crown from different angles, different seasons, different decades. She'd been studying them for 6 hours straight, memorizing every rock formation, every potential hide, every possible approach vector. Murphy stood beside her, running ballistic calculations on a tablet, his face drawn from lack of sleep. The others filed in with the careful confidence of Tier 1 operators. First was Master Sergeant David Cooper, 41 years old with 19 years in Delta Force, a ghost in human form, who'd once infiltrated an Iranian nuclear facility with nothing but stolen credentials in perfect Farsi. Behind him came Chief Petty Officer Maria Anderson, Navy SEAL Team 6, the only woman besides Jennifer to complete SEER School's Advanced Resistance course without breaking. Last was Staff Sergeant Marcus Jackson, Force Recon Marine, youngest ever to earn the Navy Cross, who'd called in danger close air support on his own position to save his platoon in Helmand Province. They didn't salute. At this level, rank was less important than capability. Cooper spoke first, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd planned operations that would never make history books. Weather forecast gotten worse. That storm system is accelerating in. We're looking at whiteout conditions starting in approximately 52 hours. If we're not in position before then, we might as well be shooting blind. Anderson pulled up thermal imaging from a reconnaissance drone. Cross has been busy. Heat signatures show he's installed warming stations here, here, and here. She pointed to positions that formed a perfect triangle around the summit. He's created climate-controlled hides. He can maintain position indefinitely while we freeze. Jackson added his own intelligence voice, rough from a childhood in Baltimore, before the Marines gave him purpose. Local contacts report unusual supply deliveries to Devil's Crown over the past 3 months. Weapons, ammunition, but also construction materials. Concrete, steel reinforcement, blast-proof glass. He's not just defending a position. He's built a fortress. Jennifer absorbed the information, adding it to her mental map of the battlefield. He's had years to prepare this. Every advantage is his. Terrain, weather, defensive positions, my daughter has leverage. We need to create our own advantages. She pulled up a topographical map on the main screen. Standard approach routes are suicide. The main trails are certainly monitored, probably mined. The cliff faces are exposed to as fields of fire. But here, she pointed to a narrow ravine on the northeast face. This drainage runs within 700 meters of the summit. It's steep, dangerous, especially in winter conditions, but it provides cover until the last possible moment. Murphy studied the route, shaking his head. That's a technical climb in good weather. In a blizzard with combat loads, it's asking for someone to appeal, which is why Cross won't expect it. Jennifer turned to Cooper. Can your team handle it? Cooper examined the imagery, calculating. With proper equipment, yes, but Crawn, even if we make it, you're still looking at a shot that's beyond theoretical limits. 700 meters in blizzard conditions through variable wind layers at a target that knows you're coming. The margin for error is essentially zero. Jennifer pulled out her grandfather's journal, opened it to a page she'd marked. December 1952, Hill, 1081 Korea. My grandfather made a 286-meter shot through a blizzard he couldn't see through. He fired at where mathematics told him the target should be trusting physics and instinct. The Chinese machine gun position was destroyed. 30 Marines lived. She looked at each of them in turn. I'm not asking you to believe it's possible. I'm asking you to help me get into position to try. Because if I don't, my daughter dies. Anderson leaned forward, studying the defensive positions. There's another problem. These warming stations, they're not just for comfort. They're observation posts. Thermal imaging, night vision, probably motion sensors. Cross will know the moment we start our approach. Unless we give him something else to look at. Jackson pulled up his own tablet, showing news feeds from Denver. Your daughter's kidnapping hasn't hit the media yet, but Cross left traces. Security footage showing him near your aunt's house, credit card transactions, rental car in his assumed name. If we leak this to the press, create a manhunt in Colorado. He'll know it's a diversion, Murphy interrupted. But he'll have to respond, Jennifer said, understanding Jackson's plan. Cross's ego won't let him be seen as sloppy. He'll need to manage the information, control the narrative. That means dividing his attention even if just for moments. Cooper stood moving to the equipment lockers. We'll need specialized gear. Climbing equipment rated for Arctic conditions, white phosphorus grenades for smoke screens in snow, and rifles capable of maintaining accuracy in extreme cold. I've already arranged it, Hayes said from the doorway. None of them had heard her enter. Everything Cooper just mentioned, plus some additions from DARPA's experimental division. Thermal camouflage that might buy you 30 seconds against Cross's sensors, ammunition with reduced thermal signature, and this. She held up a small device no larger than a smartphone. Atmospheric modeling computer. It samples air pressure, temperature, humidity, and wind at multiple altitudes simultaneously, then calculates real-time ballistic solutions. It's accurate to within 2 inches at 3,000 meters. Theoretically. Jennifer took the device, studied it. Theoretically, it's never been field tested beyond 2,000 meters. You'll be pushing it past its design limits. Story of this mission. Jennifer pocketed the device, then turned to address the team. We leave in 6 hours. Infiltration by vehicle to within 20 miles of Devil's Crown, then on foot to avoid detection. We'll approach from 3 directions. Cooper and Anderson from the west and south, creating distractions. Jackson provides overwatch and counter sniper coverage. Murphy and I take the northeast ravine to primary shooting position. She paused, meeting each of their eyes. I need to be clear about something. Cross has my daughter, but he's also holding something else hostage. The legacy of American Special Operations. He believes we've become weak, that conscience is a liability in warfare. If he wins, if he kills me and escapes, he proves that pure sociopathic killing is evolution, not devolution. That's a message that will ripple through every training camp, every terrorist cell, every enemy we face for the next generation. Cooper's expression was granite. Then we make sure he doesn't win. Hoo-yah, Anderson added quietly. Jackson simply nodded, checking his rifle with practiced efficiency. Murphy pulled Jennifer aside as the others began equipment checks. Jennifer, there's something else. I've been running the numbers on that shot. Even with perfect calculations, even with that DARPA computer, the probability of a successful hit is less than 15%. And that's assuming Cross presents a target which he might not if he suspects we're there. Jennifer's jaw tightened. Then I'll take multiple shots. Volume of fire to increase hit probability. The barrel heat will destroy your accuracy after the second shot. The harmonic vibrations alone, not with the silent eagle. Jennifer opened the rifle case, revealing modifications Murphy hadn't seen before. My grandfather added a liquid nitrogen cooling system between the barrel and the stock. Small capsules that release on firing, dropping barrel temperature by 40 degrees in 3 seconds. It's good for 5 shots before the system is depleted. Murphy examined the modification with professional appreciation. Jesus, that's genius. Completely illegal for competition shooting, but genius. My grandfather didn't care about competitions. He cared about making impossible shots when lives depended on it. The phone buzzed. Another message from Cross. This time a video. Emma was eating breakfast, chattering happily about the snow outside. Cross's voice came from behind the camera, gentle, almost kind. Finish your cereal, little one. Your mummy will be here soon. Emma looked up, eyes bright with hope. Really, is mommy really coming? Oh, yes, Cross's voice carried dark amusement. She's coming, and we're going to play a very special game when she gets here. The video ended. Jennifer's hands were trembling, not with fear but with rage. The emotional control that had defined her career was cracking, replaced by something primal, maternal, dangerous. Hayes put a hand on her shoulder. Use it. The anger. Channel it into precision. Cross is counting on you being emotional, making mistakes. Prove him wrong. 6 hours later, they were in 3 separate vehicles approaching Devil's Crown from different directions. Jennifer and Murphy were in a modified Toyota Land Cruiser, navigation systems disabled to prevent tracking, moving through back roads that didn't appear on civilian maps. The storm was building, snow beginning to fall in thick sheets that reduced visibility to mere yards. Murphy drove while Jennifer studied the atmospheric computer, learning its interface, understanding its capabilities and limitations. Every few minutes she checked her phone for updates from Cross, but there was nothing. The silence was almost worse than the taunting messages. They stopped at a ranger station 20 miles from Devil's Crown. Abandoned for the winter, it would serve as their forward operating base. Cooper and Anderson were already there, having taken a northern route. Jackson arrived 15 minutes later, covered in snow from reconnoitering the approach. "Trails are worse than expected," he reported. "Snow's already 3 feet deep in the valleys, probably 6 feet on the ridges. That ravine you want to climb is partially iced over. It'll be like ascending a vertical skating rink." Jennifer looked at the weather radar on Anderson's tablet. The main storm cell was still 12 hours away, but the leading edge was already making conditions dangerous. "We go now. Every hour we wait, conditions get worse and Emma spends more time in danger." They geared up in silence, each operator running through personal checklists, preparing for what might be their last mission. Jennifer noticed Anderson adding extra ammunition to her pack, Cooper double-checking his climbing gear, Jackson wrapping his rifle in white tape for snow camouflage. Murphy was calculating ballistic solutions for different scenarios, his lips moving slightly as he worked through the mathematics. Jennifer approached each of them individually. To Cooper, "If something happens to me, get Emma out. Promise me." "You have my word." To Anderson, "Cross might try to use Emma against me in the final moment. Don't let him, even if it means." "I understand. She'll be safe." To Jackson, "You're our insurance policy. If Cross has backup we don't know about, you're the only thing standing between them and the rest of the team. No one gets past me." Finally to Murphy, "You've been with me through everything. If I have to take the shot, if the conditions are impossible, tell me the truth. Don't let me waste our only chance on false hope." Murphy met her eyes. "I'll give you the numbers. You make the decision." "That's how we've always worked." They moved out at 2300 hours using night vision to navigate through the increasing snowfall. The plan called for synchronized arrival at their positions just before dawn, when Cross would expect them to be most tired, most vulnerable. But Jennifer had learned from her grandfather's journals that the pre-dawn hours were when impossible shots became possible, when the atmosphere was most stable, when the mind achieved a clarity that daylight somehow diluted. The climb was brutal. The ravine was indeed iced over in sections, requiring ice axes and crampons to maintain grip. Several times Jennifer or Murphy slipped, saved only by safety ropes and quick reflexes. The temperature dropped to -20°C, then -25. Their breath froze instantly in the air, creating ice crystals that fell like tiny diamonds in their night vision. 4 hours into the climb, Murphy's hand signal brought them to a halt. Through the swirling snow, thermal imaging showed heat blooms ahead, one of Cross's observation posts exactly where the reconnaissance photos had indicated. But something was wrong. The heat signature was too regular, too consistent. Jennifer moved forward carefully, rifle ready. The observation post was empty, but the heating element was on. A mannequin sat in the observer's position, creating the illusion of an occupied position. On its chest, a note in Cross's handwriting, "Getting warmer, Jennifer," both literally and figuratively. It was psychological warfare designed to unnerve, to make them question what was real and what was deception. But it also told Jennifer something important. Cross was playing games, which meant he was confident. Overconfident, perhaps. They continued climbing, reaching their primary shooting position just as the eastern sky began to lighten. The hide was a natural depression in the rocks, providing cover while allowing clear sight lines to the summit. Jennifer set up the Silent Eagle while Murphy assembled his spotting scope and the atmospheric computer. Through her scope magnification set to maximum, Jennifer could finally see Cross's fortress. He'd built it into the mountain itself, concrete and steel, merging with natural rock. Windows of blast-proof glass provided him with 360-degree views. And there on a balcony facing their position stood Alexander Cross himself. He was older than the photograph's late 50s now, but still lean and dangerous. He was drinking coffee, steam rising in the cold air, seemingly unconcerned about being exposed, because beside him, holding his hand, was Emma. Jennifer's heart stopped. Her daughter was bundled in a pink snowsuit, mittens, and a knit hat with cat ears. She was pointing at something in the valley, chattering animatedly. Cross nodded, responded, played the role of caring guardian perfectly. "I have the shot," Jennifer whispered, crosshair centered on Cross's head. "Range 3712 meters. Murphy was already reading the atmospheric computer. "Negative. Wind shear at 2,000 meters, 35 miles per hour, gusting to 45. Temperature gradient creating optical distortion. Probability of successful hit 8%. 8% is better than 0. Not if you miss and he takes Emma inside permanently. We need better conditions. Jennifer watched through the scope as Cross lifted Emma, pointing to something in the distance. Then he turned, looked directly at Jennifer's position and smiled. He knew exactly where they were. Cross set Emma down, said something to her, and she ran inside. Then he pulled out a phone and Jennifer's secure line rang. "Good morning, Jennifer. Impressive climb. That ravine is treacherous even in summer. Your grandfather would be proud of your approach route selection." "Let Emma go, Cross. This is between you and me." "Oh, but it's not. It's between philosophies, between ways of being. Your grandfather believed in moral warfare, killing with conscience, the warrior philosopher. I represent evolution beyond morality, the perfect predator unencumbered by guilt or hesitation." Through her scope, Jennifer could see Cross had set up his own rifle, a shatter M200 intervention, capable of accurate fire beyond 2,000 meters. "You're going to shoot back." "Of course, that's the game. You try to kill me to save your daughter. I try to kill you to prove my superiority. Either way, Emma gets a lesson in the true nature of violence." Jennifer's finger found the trigger. "She's 5 years old, you bastard. Yes, the perfect age to learn that the world is divided between predators and prey. That mercy is weakness. That the only truth is the bullet's path." The radio crackled. Cooper's voice. "In position. Thermal charges ready. Anderson, south approach secured. I have eyes on 3 defensive positions, all mannequins. Jackson. Overwatch established. No additional hostiles detected." Cross laughed over the phone. "Yes, I sent my men away. This is personal, not tactical. Just you, me, and the ghost of Robert Crawn watching to see which philosophy wins. My grandfather's philosophy already won. It created you." There was a pause. When Cross spoke again, his voice had lost its casual tone. "Your grandfather was a hypocrite. He taught perfect killing while preaching restraint. He created weapons, then tried to put safeties on them. I am what he truly was, stripped of pretense and self-delusion. You're what he feared becoming. That's why he tried to stop you. He tried to kill me 3 times, failed each time because at the crucial moment he hesitated. That mercy got your parents killed, and now it will get you killed too." The atmospheric computer beeped. Weather update. The main storm cell was accelerating, would arrive in 3 hours instead of 6. When it hit, visibility would drop to 0, winds would exceed 60 miles per hour, and any shot beyond 100 meters would be impossible. "Running out of time, Jennifer Crawn," Cross said, obviously monitoring the same weather data. 3 hours until the storm makes everything impossible. Then I disappear with Emma, and you never see either of us again. She'll grow up learning my ways, becoming what I am. Imagine that, your daughter as the next generation of conscienceless killer." Jennifer's rage was ice cold now, focused into laser precision. "Murphy, continuous atmospheric readings. I want updates every 30 seconds. Roger, current conditions wind 28 miles per hour from northwest, gusting to 35. Temperature -27, barometric pressure dropping rapidly." Through her scope, Jennifer watched Cross step back from the balcony's edge, reducing his exposed profile. But he was still visible, still targetable. He was baiting her, wanting her to take a low-probability shot that would reveal her exact position, allowing him to return fire with better odds. Cooper Anderson, execute distraction pattern alpha. Explosions rocked the mountain's western face as Cooper's thermal charges detonated, creating avalanches that would look like an assault from that direction. Anderson's smoke grenades deployed to the south, white phosphorus, creating a wall of heated air that would confuse thermal imaging. Cross didn't even flinch. He'd expected this plan for it. Through her scope, Jennifer saw him adjust his rifle slightly, calculating her exact position based on the pattern of distractions. "He's not taking the bait," Murphy reported. "He's locked onto us." Jennifer made a decision that went against every protocol. She stood up, exposing herself completely. Through the scope, she saw Cross's surprise, then interest. She held up her rifle, then set it down. Universal sign for parley. Cross's voice came over the phone, amused. "Surrendering already? I want to see Emma, prove she's safe, and we can discuss terms." There was a long pause. Then Cross brought Emma back onto the balcony. Her daughter waved, called out something Jennifer couldn't hear over the wind. Jennifer waved back, her heart brewing and soaring simultaneously. Satisfied? Cross asked. Let me talk to her. Cross held the phone to Emma's ear. Mommy, is that you? Hi, baby. Yes, it's me. Are you okay? Uncle Alex says you're coming to get me. He says we're playing a big game of hide and seek. That's right, sweetheart. Mommy's coming. Be brave for me, okay? I'm brave, Mommy, just like the princesses in our stories. Cross took the phone back. Touching. Now back to business. You have one shot, Jennifer, one chance to prove your grandfather's way is superior. Take it or watch me disappear with Emma forever. Jennifer settled back into shooting position. The wind was howling now, snow falling so thick she could barely see the fortress through her scope. Murphy was calling out numbers that seemed impossible. Wind speed, 40 miles per hour. Visibility, dropping temperature, creating severe optical distortion. But then Jennifer remembered something from her grandfather's journal. A passage about impossible shots. The bullet knows where it needs to go. Trust the rifle, trust the training, trust that some shots are guided by more than ballistics. Murphy, forget the computer. What does your instinct say? Murphy looked at her surprised. They'd always relied on hard data mathematical certainty, but now he closed his eyes, felt the wind, sensed the atmosphere's rhythm. Fire between the gusts. There's a pattern every 45 seconds, a lull that lasts maybe 3 seconds. Temperature inversion is creating a channel of stable air at approximately 2,000 meters altitude. Thread that channel and the bullet might stay true. Jennifer watched the wind patterns, feeling for the rhythm Murphy described. There it was, subtle but real. A pause in the chaos, a moment of relative calm in the storm. She had 3 seconds every 45 seconds. One shot in those 3 seconds, or wait for the next window. Through her scope, she saw Cross settling into his own shooting position. He would fire when she did, their bullets passing each other somewhere over the valley. A duel at impossible range, in impossible conditions, for impossible stakes. The wind-gusted snow swirled, then the lull. 30 seconds. To the next window, Murphy whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. Jennifer's world narrowed to the scope's circular view. Through the swirling snow, Cross was a wavering shadow, but Emma stood clear beside him, her pink snowsuit a beacon in the white chaos. The atmospheric computer showed impossible numbers, wind variation of 20 miles per hour across the bullet's flight path, temperature gradients that would bend light and trajectory alike, humidity changes that would affect the bullet's ballistic coefficient by nearly 12%. 20 seconds. Jennifer's breathing slowed. Her heart rate dropped. The rifle became an extension of her body, the scope an extension of her eye. She thought about her grandfather's words, about bullets that knew their path, about shots guided by more than physics. 10 seconds. Through the scope, she saw Cross make a final adjustment to his rifle. He was aiming not at her current position, but slightly to the left, where she would need to shift to compensate for wind drift. He'd calculated, her calculation predicted her prediction. This was chess at 3,700 meters, with death as the only outcome. 5 seconds. Emma moved slightly and Cross put his hand on her shoulder, keeping her in place, using her as a psychological shield, knowing Jennifer would hesitate if there was any chance of hitting her daughter. The positioning was perfect, tactical, monstrous. Lull. Now. The wind died. For exactly 3 seconds, the mountain held its breath. Jennifer made a decision that went against everything she'd been taught. Instead of aiming at Cross, she shifted her crosshairs to his rifle. The Chaytak's action specifically. Destroy the weapon, and Cross couldn't return fire. It was a smaller target, much harder to hit, but it removed Emma from the equation entirely. She squeezed the trigger. The Silent Eagle roared, sending a 750-grain bullet into the storm. The recoil hammered her shoulder, but she held position, watching through the scope. 4.8 seconds of flight time. The bullet carved through layers of wind temperature and precipitation, its path bending and warping, but somehow holding true. Cross fired simultaneously. Jennifer saw the muzzle flash, knew death was coming for her at 3,100 feet per second. But she didn't move, didn't flinch. She watched her own bullet's vapor trail a faint line through the snow. The Chaytak exploded. The rifle's action shattered the scope, disintegrated the barrel, split like overripe fruit. Cross jerked backward, his shot pulling high and right. His bullet passed over Jennifer's position by mere inches, close enough that she felt the supersonic crack of its passage. Through her scope, she saw Cross's expression shift from surprise to something else. Respect anger. He pulled Emma behind cover and Jennifer lost sight of them both. Hit confirmed, Murphy said, awe in his voice. You just made a 3-7-12-meter shot in 40-mile-per-hour winds. That's not just a record, it's impossible. But Jennifer was already cycling the bolt, chambering another round. The liquid nitrogen cooling system hissed, dropping the barrel temperature. She had 4 shots left before the system depleted. Her radio crackled. Cooper's voice urgent. Movement on the western approach. Multiple vehicles incoming. Estimate 8 to 10 hostiles 3 minutes out. Cross had lied about sending his men away. Or these were reinforcements called in when the duel began. Either way, the situation had changed dramatically. Jackson, can you delay them? Jennifer asked. Negative, they're using armored vehicles beyond my capability to stop. But I can slow them down. Gunfire erupted from Jackson's position, the sharp crack of his rifle attempting to disable vehicles, target drivers through bulletproof glass. Anderson reported movement from the south as well. They were being surrounded. Jennifer's phone rang. Cross again, his voice no longer amused. Impressive shot, Jennifer. Your grandfather would be proud. But the game's not over. My men have orders to breach in 2 minutes. You can try to stop them, save your team, or you can come for Emma. Not both. Through her scope, Jennifer saw movement in the fortress. Cross was retreating deeper inside, taking Emma with him. In moments, they'd be beyond any possibility of a shot protected by concrete and steel. If Cross escaped into the tunnel system, her reconnaissance had suggested existed, he could emerge miles away, disappear forever with her daughter. Murphy, pack up. We're going in. Jennifer, that's suicide. Cross has the defensive advantage. We're outnumbered. And Emma's in there. She slung the Silent Eagle over her shoulder and began descending toward the fortress, moving with reckless speed through the snow and rocks. Murphy followed, calling out warnings she ignored. Behind them, the firefight intensified. Cooper's explosives detonated. Anderson's rifle cracked steadily. Jackson's position was taking heavy fire. The fortress loomed before them, a monument to paranoia and preparation. The main entrance was a heavy steel door, certainly locked and probably booby-trapped. But Jennifer had noticed something in the reconnaissance photos, a weakness Cross might have overlooked. A ventilation grate large enough for a person leading into the mechanical room. She shot the grate's bolts with her pistol, the sound lost in the storm's howl. The grate fell away, revealing a dark tunnel. Without hesitation, she crawled inside Murphy, right behind her. The tunnel was tight, freezing, filled with the smell of diesel fumes from the generator it serviced. They emerged in a mechanical room surrounded by heating equipment and electrical panels. Through the door, they could hear her voices, boots on concrete. Cross's men were inside, coordinating the defense against the incoming assault. Jennifer moved to the door, peered through the crack. A hallway stretched before them, doors on either side, stairs at the far end leading up. Emma would be up in the most secure location, but between here and there were at least 4 armed men, all alert, all dangerous. I count 4, Murphy whispered. Body armor, automatic weapons. We're outgunned. Jennifer pulled a flashbang from her vest. Not outsmarted. She rolled the grenade down the hallway. 3 seconds later, the world went white and loud. Jennifer moved before the echo-faded pistol in hand, muscle memory, guiding her through the violence. 4 shots, 4 targets, all center mass above the armor line. The men dropped their surprise, converting instantly to death. They climbed the stairs, checking corners, clearing rooms with practiced efficiency. The second floor was living quarters recently occupied but currently empty. The third floor was Cross's command center, banks of monitors showing feeds from cameras around the mountain. Jennifer could see her team's positions, the incoming vehicles, the tactical situation deteriorating rapidly. But no Emma, no Cross. The roof, Murphy said, pointing to a ladder in the corner. They climbed, emerging into the storm's full fury. The wind nearly knocked them down snow, blinding them instantly. But through the white chaos, Jennifer heard something that stopped her heart. Emma crying. She moved toward the sound, fighting against wind that tried to throw her off the mountain. There at the roof's edge stood Cross. He held Emma in his arms, her face buried against his shoulder. Beyond them was nothing but a 1,000-foot drop into the valley below. That's far enough, Jennifer, Cross shouted over the storm. Another step and we both go over. Jennifer stopped, raising her hands to show they were empty. The Silent Eagle was still slung on her back, useless at this range in these conditions. Let her go, Cross. You've lost. Your rifles destroyed your philosophies proven wrong. It's over. Cross laughed, a sound torn away by the wind. Wrong, I made you shoot through an innocent woman. I made you choose violence over conscience. I proved that when it matters, everyone becomes a killer. You proved that I'll do anything to protect innocent lives. That's not your philosophy, it's my grandfather's. Your grand was weak. Cross shifted closer to the edge, Emma whimpering in fear. He could have killed me 3 times. Each time he chose mercy. That mercy killed your parents. And now it's going to kill your daughter. Jennifer saw it in his eyes. He was really going to do it. Jump, taking Emma with him, proving in his twisted logic that mercy led to tragedy. She had seconds, maybe less. You're right, she said, surprising him. My grandfather was weak. He should have killed you. I won't make the same mistake. She drew her pistol in one smooth motion, but didn't aim at Cross. She aimed at Emma, her own daughter. You jump, I shoot her first. She dies quickly, painlessly, instead of in terror during the fall. That's my mercy. Cross froze, calculating. He hadn't expected this, hadn't predicted a mother would threaten her own child. It went against every psychological profile, every assumption about maternal instinct. You're bluffing. Jennifer's hand was rock steady, her eyes colder than the storm. My grandfather taught me that the hardest choice isn't the longest shot. It's knowing when death is the kindest option. Emma dies either way if you jump. This way she doesn't suffer. For 10 seconds that lasted forever, they stood frozen in tableau. Mother-child killer storm. The wind howled, snow swirled, and somewhere below, gunfire continued as Jennifer's team fought for their lives. Then Emma raised her head, looked at her mother with eyes full of trust despite the terror. Mommy, close your eyes, baby. It'll be over soon. That trust, that absolute faith, even facing death, broke something in Cross. Jennifer saw it happen, saw 40 years of constructed philosophy crack like ice in spring. The child's trust in her mother, even with a gun pointed at her, was something his worldview couldn't accommodate. He stepped back from the edge, set Emma down, and smiled. You would have done it, he said, wonder in his voice. You would have killed her to spare her suffering. That's not mercy, Jennifer. That's evolution. You've become me. No, Jennifer said, lowering the pistol. I've become what my grandfather truly was. Someone willing to make impossible choices to protect what matters. The difference is I know the con. Emma ran to her and Jennifer caught her, held her tight, felt her daughter's heart racing against her chest. Murphy moved past them, rifle trained on Cross, but the man made no aggressive moves. He stood at the roof's edge, looking out over the valley, the storm beginning to break around them. There's something you should know, Cross said, his voice carrying despite the wind. Your parents, they're plain. I didn't kill them. Jennifer's arms tightened around Emma. You're lying. I'm many things but not a liar. Check the records. I was in Somalia that day, confirmed by CIA surveillance. Your grandfather knew this. He lied to you, created a monster for you to hunt someone to blame. The truth is their plane really did have mechanical failure. Random tragedy, not targeted murder. Robert needed you angry, focused, trained. So he gave you an enemy. The world tilted. Everything Jennifer had believed, the foundation of her purpose, crumbled like the snow beneath her feet. That's not... He wouldn't... He would and did. Check the files. It's all there, buried in his papers. Your grandfather's greatest manipulation wasn't training me. It was training you. Sirens in the distance. Local law enforcement finally responding to the firefight. Cross looked at the approaching lights, then at Jennifer. They'll arrest me, of course, but I'll disappear. I always do. And someday, maybe years from now, I'll test you again. Or maybe Emma when she's old enough. The game continues across generations. No, Jennifer said quietly. It ends now. She set Emma down, told her to cover her ears. Then she unslung the silent eagle, worked the bolt chambered around. The rifle came up, smooth, natural, inevitable. You won't shoot, Cross said, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Not in cold blood, not in front of your daughter. That would make you exactly what you claim not to be. Jennifer thought about her grandfather's journal, about shots that echoed across time, about choices that defined not just lives, but legacies. The rifle was steady in her hands, the scope centered on Cross's chest. My grandfather made his choice. He chose mercy, and you called it weakness. But there's something he understood that you never did. Mercy isn't about the person you spare. It's about the person you remain. She shifted her aim 6 inches left and fired. The bullet destroyed the concrete edge where Cross stood, sending chunks of debris into the valley. He stepped back instinctively, and in that moment Murphy moved. The tackle was perfect, driving Cross to the ground away from the edge into submission. Zip ties secured his wrist before he could recover. Why? Cross asked from the ground, genuinely confused. You had the shot. You had justification. Why didn't you take it? Jennifer knelt beside him, Emma clinging to her side. Because my daughter's watching. And unlike you, I want her to grow up knowing that strength isn't about taking life. It's about preserving it even when every fiber of your being screams for vengeance. The sirens were closer now. FBI, local police, probably military police from Fort Carson. Cross would be arrested, would stand trial, would likely escape, as he'd suggested. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, Emma was safe. Today, Jennifer had proven that her grandfather's way, the path of the warrior with conscience, could triumph without becoming what it fought against. Murphy helped her stand, and together they watched the vehicles approaching up the mountain road. The storm was breaking sun, piercing through clouds in dramatic shafts that painted the valley gold. Below, Cooper's voice on the radio confirmed all hostiles, neutralized, team, intact, mission complete. What do we tell the debrief? Murphy asked. Jennifer looked down at Emma, who was playing with the snow, already forgetting the terror of moments before. The resilience of children, their ability to find joy even in aftermath, was its own form of strength. The truth, that I made a 712-meter shot in impossible conditions, that we neutralized a terrorist cell and captured Alexander Cross, that American special operations proved superior to mercenary tactics. And the rest, your grandfather's deception, Cross's philosophy, the choice on the roof. Jennifer picked up Emma, feeling her daughter's weight warm and alive and trusting. That stays here. Some truths are too complex for reports. Some victories too personal for files. The FBI vehicles arrived, agents swarming the fortress, taking Cross into custody. He looked back once as they led him away, and in his eyes, Jennifer saw something she hadn't expected. Respect, certainly. Fear, possibly. But also relief. As if being defeated by mercy rather than violence had lifted a weight he'd carried for decades. Director Hayes approached, taking in the scene with professional assessment. Outstanding work, Crawn. The shot you made will be studied for generations. The record may never be broken. Records don't matter, Jennifer said, exhausted, now that adrenaline was fading. Emma's safe, my team's alive. Cross is in custody. That's what matters. Hayes studied her carefully. There's more to this story. There always is, but some stories don't need telling. 3 weeks later, Jennifer stood in front of a new class at Fort Benning's sniper school. Emma was with her aunt, safe and happy, the trauma fading like a bad dream. The students looked at her with awe, the woman who'd made the impossible shot, who'd captured Alexander Cross, who'd proven that American training created not just killers, but warriors. I'm Major Jennifer Crawn, she said, her recent promotion still feeling strange. 3 weeks ago, I made a shot at 712 meters through a blizzard. It's a record that will probably stand forever. But that's not why you're here. She pulled out her grandfather's journal pages worn from reading. You're here to learn that every bullet you fire carries a choice. Every trigger pull is a decision between what you can do and what you should do. I can teach you the ballistics, the breathing, the mathematics. But the most important thing I can teach you is this. The hardest shot isn't the longest one. It's the one you choose not to take. A young sergeant raised his hand. Ma'am, what happened to Alexander Cross? Jennifer had wondered when someone would ask. The official report said he'd escaped during transfer, vanished into the shadow world he'd inhabited for decades. But Jennifer knew the truth. Cross had been offered a deal, his expertise traded for cooperation. He was probably training someone right now, passing on his skills to a new generation. The game continuing as he'd predicted. Alexander Cross learned what my grandfather always knew. That mercy isn't weakness. That conscience isn't a liability. That the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemy, but in proving your philosophy superior without becoming them. She looked out the window at the Georgia pine forests, thinking about Emma, about legacy, about shots that echoed through time. Somewhere out there, Cross was probably planning his next move, his next test. But Jennifer wasn't afraid. She'd proven that her grandfather's way, the path of the warrior philosopher, could triumph without sacrificing its principles. Your training begins now, she told the students. You'll learn to shoot farther than you think possible. But more importantly, you'll learn when not to shoot. Because in the end, it's not the bullets we fire that define us. It's the ones we choose to keep in the chamber. The class began. The legacy continued. And somewhere in the mountains of Montana, snow covered the traces of a confrontation that had redefined what it meant to be not just a sniper, but a human being choosing between vengeance and mercy, between what was possible and what was right. Jennifer touched the Silent Eagle's case, her grandfather's rifle now truly hers. The weight of it reminded her that every generation faced the same choice: become the monster to defeat the monster, or prove that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to remain human even in the face of inhumanity. She'd made her choice on that rooftop with her daughter watching and the storm breaking around them. Not the easy choice, not the satisfying choice, but the right choice. The choice that would echo through Emma's life and hopefully through generations beyond. The hardest shot wasn't the longest one. It was the one that required you to lower the rifle and walk away, knowing you could have taken it, but choosing not to. That wasn't weakness. That was the strength her grandfather had tried to teach the world: one shot, one choice, one student at a time. And now it was her turn to teach. The lesson had come full circle. The game had ended for now. But the teaching, the real legacy of Project Silent Arrow and Robert Crawn and the choice on the rooftop, would continue as long as there were warriors willing to learn that true strength lay not in the trigger pulled, but in the finger that chose restraint. Jennifer began the first lesson, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd made the impossible shot and the impossible choice. Outside, the sun climbed higher over Fort Benning, casting long shadows through the classroom windows. Shadows that reminded her that even in brightest light, darkness waited, but also that shadows only existed because light was stronger. The students leaned forward, eager to learn from the woman who'd shattered records and defeated legends. But what Jennifer would teach them, what mattered more than ballistics or breathing or mathematics, was that every warrior faced a moment when they had to choose between what they could do and what they should do. She'd faced that moment on a rooftop in a blizzard with her daughter's life in the balance and vengeance within reach. She'd chosen mercy, chosen humanity, chosen to prove that her grandfather's legacy wasn't about creating perfect killers, but about creating warriors who knew when not to kill. The Silent Eagle rested in its case, waiting for the next impossible shot. But Jennifer knew now that the most impossible shot was the one you talked yourself out of taking. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was the victory that no enemy could ever take away. Class continued. The sun climbed higher. And somewhere Emma played with toys, safe and innocent, growing up in a world where her mother had chosen mercy over vengeance, ensuring that the next generation would understand that true strength wasn't measured in bodies dropped or records broken, but in the ability to stay human when everything pushed you to become otherwise. The story of the longest shot ever made would be told in military academies for generations. But the story of the shot not taken, the mercy chosen, the humanity preserved, that would live in the hearts of those who understood that sometimes the greatest victory was in refusing to play the game at all. Jennifer smiled, thinking of her grandfather, of the choice he'd made in Korea, not to take a shot that would have been justified but wrong. That choice had rippled forward through time, through her, through Emma, into a future where warriors could be both deadly and humane, where strength and mercy weren't opposites, but partners. The lesson continued. The legacy endured. And the Silent Eagle waited patiently for the next time it would be needed, not to take life, but to preserve it, one impossible choice at a time.